Alright guys, let's get started with creating our application. Now the first thing you want to do is to open up your terminal and then navigate to the directory where you want to create the project. We'll be creating our project using the Angular CLI. So if you haven't, you want to install the Angular CLI to get started with me. You can install the Angular CLI by first installing Node.js, and then you use the npm, which is the Node package manager, to install the Angular CLI by typing npm install at angular/CLI, and you want to install that globally. Alright, I'm sure you know how to do that by now. So let's quickly navigate to the directory that I'll be using. Let me go to my documents, and then let me go to, I have this folder here, and I'll be creating the application here. So I'm going to do ng new, and let's call the application auth app. Okay, so do we want to add routing? Let's say yes, and let's choose CSS. So all the dependency would be installed and we can get our application started. Now, like in my previous videos, the editor I'll be using is Visual Studio Code. So you can follow along with me by installing Visual Studio Code by going to visualstudiocode.com, I think, and you can install it from there, or you can follow along with your favorite editor. Now the package is successfully installed. Let's navigate to our application. I called it auth app, so cd auth app, and I can open Visual Studio Code from there. So in our application, we'll be creating 4 components. So we have a welcome component that's the page that would see when we are logged in, and we have a login component for having our login form, sign up component for the sign up form, and a page not found component, just in case a user tried to navigate to a URL that doesn't exist in the application. So the next thing I want to do is I want to open a new terminal and generate all those components. So I'm going to drag the terminal up a little bit so you can see, and I'm going to do G for generate, C for component. We want to generate them in the components folder as usual, and I'm going to call it the welcome component. And let me skip the test because we're not writing any unit test in this video, so skip test. Alright, our first component is generated. Let me quickly generate the other one, which is the login component. So I'm going to say login. Okay, then I'm going to do another one for sign up component. Alright, and finally I'm going to do the last one for the page not found component. So I'm going to say page not found, like so. Enter, and all our components is generated. So the next thing I would like to do is to set up our routes. So if you open your app folder, you'll see the app component.ts. This is the entry point to your application, and if you check the HTML file, you have this large styled file that's given to you by default when you bootstrap an Angular application. So we'll be replacing this with our own HTML markup. So I'm going to delete all this, and I'm going to leave the router outlet because this is where we'll be having our route. So I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to go to the app.routing.module. This is where we want to set up our routes. So we do that by adding curly braces, and we'll add the paths to the route. The first one is the welcome page, so I'm going to say welcome, and we're going to give this a component. So we're going to use our welcome component that we just generated, So it's the welcome component. Later I'll be adding the route guard to protect this component, and then I want to add another component. I'm going to use empty quote here, so just if the user navigates to a component without putting the default route for this application, if the user gets here, I'm going to re-navigate them, or redirect them rather, to the welcome component. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm going to add redirect to, and I'm going to say welcome component, and I want the path match to be full, so I'm going to say path match, and I'm going to set that to be full. All right, and now I'm going to add the other components, so the login and the sign up component. So I'll do another path, and this one's for login, and then I'm going to type the component, and that will go to my login. Help me please. Login. Why am I not getting IntelliSense? Okay, because I don't need the codes around it. So login component. All right, sorry about that. And the next component I want to add is the sign up component. So sign up component right here. And finally, if a user tries to navigate to a route that doesn't exist in our application, so a different route except the following routes, we're going to take them to the page not found component. So I'm going to use the asterisk like this. That will take them to the page not found component. So I'm going to set the component and say page not found. All right, so this is our routes. This is the way we'll be setting our routes in the application. So the next thing we want to do, we want to install Bootstrap, because we'll be using some Bootstrap styling. I'll be using Bootstrap 5, and yeah, so we'll be installing Bootstrap. So we want to open our terminal, and we do npm install Bootstrap, and we want to do --save, and this should add Bootstrap to our node module. Okay, we have Bootstrap 5.2 added to our node module. Let me close the terminal, and I'm going to show you. If we go over to the node module and we go down here, you see Bootstrap. Later during the tutorials, I'll also be adding font awesome to add icons for our buttons, but right now we just have Bootstrap, and let's add the classes to the angular.cli file. So not here, I'll go to the distributable files, and here I have the CSS, and let's grab the bootstrap.mean.css. So I'm going to copy relative path, and then I'm going to do Command P and go to angular.json here, and here you want to make sure that you put this on the build and not the test. So you have the one for the serve, you have one for the build, okay, and then you have one for the test. Here, the test. Make sure you don't put it here, because this is when you want to run unit test on your application. Where we would like to put it is during the build, when we're building the application. So I'm going to just put that here and paste it here, and I also want to do that for our JavaScript files from the Bootstrap. Okay, so I'm going to do the same. Bootstrap mean.javascript, copy relative path, and here I can put this and paste that right here. So we have Bootstrap, and we have Bootstrap CSS and Bootstrap JavaScript. So I can save this, and let me quickly close this and close the node module, and we have Bootstrap. Now I can bring back the terminal and we can serve our application. So let's just quickly do an ng serve to our application because we just added new dependencies. And this is going to take some time. So while the application is getting started, let me just quickly go over to my browser, and we're going to set up our authentication app on Firebase. So the first thing you want to do, head over to console.google.firebase and head over to the account that you want to use, and then click on this plus button that says add project, and then you enter a name for your project. I'm just going to call mine Auth app. Click on continue, and then continue, select your default account for Firebase, and now you can create your project. Okay, that's going to take some time. Let's check back with our Visual Studio Code and see if our application is served. Yes. And if we go back to the browser and we look at localhost 4200, there's our application. We are navigated directly to the welcome page. So if I go localhost 4200 and hit enter, it takes me directly to the welcome page. Okay, that's what that second route of redirect to does. Alright, so let's go back to Visual Studio Code. Yeah, I was talking about this route here. So our default page for the application is this welcome page, but we're going to protect that later, and you need to get past the login page or the sign up component before you get there. Okay. Alright, so now we have our application started. Let's add Firebase to our application. So to add Firebase to your application, you want to make sure that you've installed Firebase tools, and we're going to be using AngularFire to connect to Firebase. Alright, so I want to do a Firebase login, and this is made possible by Firebase tools. You can install that with npm install Firebase tools. So if I do Firebase login, I'm already logged in. That's good, but if you haven't, it's going to redirect you to your browser and then you can log in. Alright, now I'm going to add AngularFire, and you can add AngularFire with ng add at angular-fire. Alright, but before I do that, let me just make sure that our Firebase application is set up for us. Okay, so we have this Auth app right here, and we go to the web and we can register a new app here. We can still call it Auth app, and we can register the app. And I think this should be fine now. Okay, and these are all the properties that we need for the app. So I can just copy this and go back to Visual Studio Code, and let's try to add AngularFire. Okay, it says it would add AngularFire 6.15. I would say yes to that. It's going to install the package. Come on, it's usually faster than this. Okay, installing packages. and it should come up with all the list of applications that I have from Firebase, and then I can select the one that I want to connect to, or it might fail. Let's see. Package installed successfully. Okay, but they ran into issues, so it wants me to try the command again. I don't know why it's having this issue, but it's going to work the second time. Okay, the packages are successfully installed, and you can see I have all the applications. This is the one I created before. This is the new one we're going to be creating, so I'm going to select that one, and boom, we are connected to our Firebase. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to go into the environments and copy all those properties from the application. I'm going to set it to a variable there, or an object called Firebase, and I'm going to paste it right here, and I'm going to save this. And we would need to initialize our Firebase app in the app module, so I'm going to come right here, and under the imports I'm going to say Firebase app dot initialize, Firebase app dot initialize. Oops, sorry, it's the AngularFire module. All right, because we are bringing in the Firebase through AngularFire. So AngularFire module dot initialize app, and we want to bring in that environment variables, and then we need the Firebase. Good. Now we are connected to our Firebase, and we don't want the semicolon here. It looks good. We just want to take away this Firebase app. We don't need that, so I'm just going to save this, and we should be good to go. If I head over to back to the browser, and let me hit on continue to console right here, we have our auth app here, but it's not showing up. If I go to the authentication here, we want to get started with authentication, and we want to enable email password. You're just going to check this one. You even have the option of using a passwordless sign-in. That looks interesting. And we also want to enable the Google sign-in, so you choose your email and then you hit on save. Okay, I think this setup looks good for now. If I go back to the home, you see our app here is the setup is complete. You can go through the settings, and we're good with Firebase. Now let's go back to our application, and let's start styling our login form with Bootstrap. Okay, so since we are starting with the welcome page, let's just start with the welcome component. Yeah, just to check to see if Bootstrap is working. Okay, so if I go over to my components and I go to the welcome component, right, this is the TS file, this is the HTML, and just to add the Bootstrap container, and let's add the class of P5, margin top 3. I can do it with emmet like this. I can add a background for light, and round it there. We add those classes, and then we want to add the header that says welcome, and also we want to put a paragraph there, we're going to put the username later on, but we can give this a class of lead. But I want to put this in quotes, of course, and I'm going to save that. And if I go over to the browser and check my app, yeah, we have the username. This looks nice, but we can also add in navigation to our application. So let's create a Bootstrap navigation. All right, so yeah, I think I forgot to create that component, so we also need a component for our navigation. So let me quickly go back to the terminal and generate that. So ng g for generate, c for components, and we want to put that in our components folder. We're going to call it nav or navbar, and we're going to skip the tests. All right, so our navbar is generated for us. So instead of me typing down all the code to create the Bootstrap navigation, we can save some time by going to the Bootstrap page just to steal that navigation from there. So I'm just going to go over to the Bootstrap site, and I want to go over some examples, and let's choose a navigation, and this is a navbar example of fixed. I think this one will do for our purpose. Yeah, so let's get this one. I'm going to go to inspect, and actually let's do view source, view page source, and we want the navigation. So I'm just going to copy this and go back here to my Visual Studio Code, and then I go to the navbar component HTML. I paste all the HTML here, and then we can customize it to what we would like. Okay, so this time around we won't be using navbar doc. I think I used that in my previous video, so I would like to use navbar light here. I don't want it to be fixed at the top, so I can take that off, and this can be expanded to medium screens. That's good. And instead of fixed navbar, we give it our name, say auth app, and that looks good. And the home and the disabled, that's also good. If I go back to our app.component.ts.html, sorry, I want the container, so I can say .container right here, and I can put all our routes there, so I can move the router outlet into that. And here I can add our navbar, so that will be app nav bar. Not so sure. Oops. So we can do app navbar right here. Just going to close it and save, and we are getting that nav app bar from our component right here. You see app nav bar, right? That's the one we use, app nav bar. Okay, now we have the nav bar here. Let's do some tweaking and styling with the application. So we have the home here showing with the nav item, and then we have this list right here. So what I would like to do is I would like to take away this disabled link here and take this off as well. But before I do that, okay, I want to take away this form. We don't need the form. I want to copy this UL. Let me put it back here. So we have two UL there, and I want one to go to the right of the screen. So we have some styles here, ME auto. So this is the margin end actually. So I'm going to change it to margin start auto so that it goes to the right. And we might not need those classes, but let me see how it looks on the browser first. If I go back and I go back to our application and let me refresh. Oops, it's still dark. So I have navbar dark and BG light. So if I have navbar dark, it's BG dark, but if it's navbar light, should be BG light. So if I save it now, we have the application here, auth app, and we have those links here at the end. So one thing I don't like is they are at the end of the application. I want it to be at the center. So let's go back to the application, and here it's container fluid. If I change it to container, it's going to center it at the middle. So if I save that and I go back, okay, this looks like what I want. And let me go back now to Visual Studio Code, and so we have the auth app here, we have the home. So this home is our welcome component, so I'm just going to say welcome component, and we have our router link for that. So I can quickly add the router link here. So I'm going to say router link equal our welcome component, so I'm going to do /welcome. Okay, I think it was with the small w. So -welcome, and I'm going to delete this link because we just have the welcome there, and then we have two links. Let's not make this the active one, so I'm going to delete that active, and going to get rid of this as well and close that tag there. And this would be the login, and we have the other one for the register or the sign up, so I'm just going to call it sign up, and this is going to the router link page. So I'm going to copy this, let me paste it here, and this would go to the login page, and this would go to the sign up page. All right, let me save this, and we have one more link, and this would also go to the welcome page. So let me just quickly add that. So let's save that and go back to our application. Okay, it's looking as planned. So this is the welcome page, welcome, and we'll be getting this username from Firebase very soon. We have this login, and you can see it takes us here with the login works and the sign up works. And just one thing that I don't really like is that that is too close. It's too close to the navigation, so we can push that down using some padding. So if I go back to my application and I go to style.css, and for the body, let's style the body, and let's do padding top of 80 pixels. Okay, I'm going to save this. Let's go back, see how it looks. Oh, that doesn't look good, does it? Let's try padding bottom. All right, this looks much better. We have the login, it's here, sign up, it's here. All right, so in the next video, we're going to work on this login form and the sign up form. We'll be using a Bootstrap card to display the form on the center of the page. Okay, so we'll continue in the next video.